Welcome back to the classroom. I'm Mr. Rocco, a certified high school history teacher. And here at Mr. Rocco's Rockin' History, I'm always finding the truth behind the textbook. In this self-paced 10-minute lesson, we will jump into the U.S. history concept of manifest destiny, breaking down the economic, political, and social forces that drove the massive westward expansion of the United States in the 19th century. What we will rock out with today: the bizarre origins of the term manifest destiny, the real financial pressures that drove settlers to migrate to the West, why expansion meant tragedy for Western Native American populations, the historical issues connecting this era directly to the Civil War. This video will help you understand major concepts and U.S. policies in the American West. Whether you're a student getting ready for a test, a teacher needing a hook for that new lesson, or a lifelong learner just looking for more information, I am here to rock out Manifest Destiny with you. Click the worksheet links below. Follow along with the video. Remember, you can pause the video. You are working at your speed, not my speed. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Now let's rock. In 1800, the United States covered about 800,000 square miles. There was hardly any Americans, and around 300,000 Native Americans settled beyond the Mississippi River. There were no routes out west, and no one wanted to struggle with the wild wilderness and the harsh conditions traveling west. By 1850, the physical size of the United States had tripled. People were beginning to blaze more trails west, and one of the most popular routes was the Oregon Trail, used by settlers traveling west. And here's the entire justification for this massive land grab. It came down to one single newspaper editor in 1845 who basically said, "God wants us to have it." But what did he mean by that? O'Sullivan argued that it was America's divine right, almost like a mission from God, to expand westward all the way to the Pacific Ocean. He wasn't just making a casual suggestion. He was saying that it was America's fate, even destiny, to stretch from coast to coast. This idea wasn't some wild headline. It caught fire. People started to believe that moving west wasn't just a good idea, it was their destiny, a moral duty, and frankly, an excuse to take everything west of the Mississippi. Settlers, politicians, and even businesses grabbed onto the concept, using it to justify taking new lands, building new towns, and pushing forward no matter what obstacles stood their way. But at its core, it was driven by three things: economics, ideology, and political power. Let's hit the first motivating factor: economics and the almighty dollar. The East was getting overpopulated and crowded. Land prices were soaring, and good paying jobs were not easy to find. So most people were looking for new opportunities. The West promised cheap and even free land with the promise of a new life and possibly getting rich looking for gold. The Homestead Act of 1862 was a way to give settlers free land in exchange for promising to use the land for farming. Now, this was during the Civil War, and not everyone benefited. Native Americans and former slaves usually did not receive any free land from the government. The Oregon Trail, a 2,170-mile wagon route that carried thousands of pioneers westward in the 1800s. Imagine Being able to move 2,000 miles away from your home and become anyone you wanted to be. No one knew you. No one knew your name. It was truly a fresh start. Most people didn't set out chasing religious freedom. Nope. They were running from their debts and their bills. The promise of a clean financial slate out west was the biggest draw. But when they arrived, reality hit hard. Resources were scarce. Competition was limited. And survival came at a steep price. The real winners? The merchants. They sold supplies to settlers and gold miners, charging inflated prices for even the basic of things. Food, clothing, even spare parts all cost many times more than back east. Instead of striking rich, most families found themselves struggling just to get by. The Oregon Trail wasn't just a journey of miles. It was a gamble with debt, survival, and the harsh economics of the frontier. You've managed to avoid losing all your money and supplies? Great. But don't break out the champagne yet, because even if you survived the initial hardships, you are still running the gauntlet of deadly infectious diseases. The pioneers called this mission Manifest Destiny. It was a truly grand vision. But the reality? It came with a terrifying 1 in 10 chance of death. It turns out the greatest obstacle to the American dream wasn't the vast frontier itself. It was often just bad drinking water, or worse, a tragically placed wagon wheel. Our next point is the social justification. It's the belief that American life was the only correct life. This ideology was that Americans were bringing progress, democracy, and civilization to the primitive West. Let's analyze this famous painting titled American Progress by John Gast. The woman, who is depicted like an angel, is stringing a telegraph wire, a revolutionary new communication technology of its time, while Native Americans are fleeing as new settlers move west. You can also see the ever-expanding representation of the Transcontinental Railroad, connecting the East Coast to the West Coast. The overlooked issue is that this was a powerful justification for violently displacing millions of Native Americans. U.S. policies like the Dawes Act of 1887 didn't just try to turn Native Americans into farmers. It carved up their ancestral lands into tiny parcels, tearing communities apart and stripping away their heritage. Meanwhile, the calculated slaughter of the buffalo, the very heartbeat of the plains, left Native people starving and broken. Their entire way of life shattered overnight. These devastating measures became the official excuse for uprooting Native nations, pushing them from their homelands and crushing centuries of rich nomadic culture. Finally, let's talk about political and military power, the raw, unapologetic force that shaped the continent. Manifest Destiny was the ultimate political weapon, wielded by those ambitious enough to dream of an empire stretching from ocean to ocean. For politicians, it was more than a slogan. It was the golden ticket to influence, power, and control. President James K. Polk embodied this ambition, riding the wave of expansionist fervor straight into the White House. His campaign wasn't shy about its goals. He made it clear to the American people that acquiring Oregon and Texas wasn't just a possibility, It was a promise. As Polk delivered on that promise, he was pushing the nation into the Mexican-American War. It was a conflict fueled by the desire for more land. Land that would redefine the map and the meaning of America. The war was swift. The war was ruthless and ultimately transformative, resulting in the Mexican secession, a staggering transfer of territory that gave the United States what will become California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and more. But beneath the grand headlines and patriotic speeches lurked a darker motive, the relentless, insidious spread of slavery. This wasn't just about manifesting a destiny, but about shaping it to favor the powerful interests at the nation's core. And history doesn't forget the voices of the past. Ulysses S. Grant, who would later become a celebrated general and president, fought in the trenches of this war. Decades after the battles had ended, he looked back not with pride, but with regret, famously condemning the war as a monstrous crime. A stark admission that expansion came at a terrible cost, all in the service of deepening the wounds of slavery. So Manifest Destiny achieved its goal. The U.S. became a continental superpower. But this is the crucial part the textbook often glosses over. The cost was catastrophic. The expansion meant the systematic displacement of countless Native American tribes, breaking treaties, and forcing people onto reservations. This is the truth behind the textbook. An incredible success for one group was a devastating tragedy for another. And politically, it was a disaster. Every new territory added to the Union, like California and Kansas, reignited the furious debate and violence over slavery. Manifest Destiny didn't just expand the country, it expanded the national fault line, setting the stage for the Civil War. That's the historical deep cut that connects this era to the next. So Manifest Destiny, it gave the country we know today, but its foundations were rooted in aggressive expansion and a disregard for human rights. It's an idea that you can't fully understand without exploring both the land gained and the lives lost. If this helped you finally understand the why behind Manifest Destiny and the American West, hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what historical period you'd like me to cover next. Check out the videos for more truths behind the textbook. And as always, thanks for hanging in the classroom. Let's keep rocking history with Mr. Rocco.